Thank you, Mr. Rivaro. Good morning, Rhinebeck Middle School and High School parents. This is Dr. Eric Lipinski. With me is Dr. Tina Wilson, and we're going to give you a presentation that has two main purposes. First of all, you see our return dates for middle school. It's April 6th. That's a Tuesday. That's after spring break, whereas high school is the Monday after, April 12th. Okay, and when we say return, this is for full return. So we make the transition from hybrid to full return. So the two important purposes of this meeting, number one, is to give you the information regarding what's staying the same, what's going to change, and secondly, important for making those changes is the survey that you now have. Most of you have filled the survey out. The deadline for the survey is this evening at 11 p.m. And the survey is very simple. It's, are you sending your child in, or are you keeping your child home under the remote option? That survey is critical to us because that determines literally how many children we're going to have in each class. Knowing the number of students in the school is going to dictate how we spread out furniture, how we determine any movement of classes, and a whole bunch of other things. So hopefully we're going to give you the information today that you need to make that decision, and then you can give us the answer in or out. So the link to the survey is posted on the middle school, high school web pages under announcements. And again, we need those accurate numbers. So we'll start with the easy part. What's staying the same? By now we know that the primary means of keeping everybody safe is mask wearing. And again, happy to report everyone, students, staff have been wearing masks. It has not been a problem. Our students have been great about that. And that's going to continue. So the masks will stay the same. Our enhanced ventilation, and by enhanced ventilation, that just means instead of on a nice day opening your windows, we've had our windows open all year. That will continue. As the weather gets warmer, it'll be easier to do that. We have things like box fans in the windows to circulate air. For our rooms that do not have windows, we have an HVAC system that has upgraded filters. The filters are changed twice as often. They are constantly running and drawing in outside air. We've taken the heat regulators off. So even on those cold days during the winter, where normally the dampers would close and we would bring in less outside air to keep it warmer, we kept more air coming in, so it was a little cooler in the buildings. And then in interior rooms that do not have windows, we've augmented that with air purifiers. Contact tracing protocols. Contact tracing protocols just means that if we have a positive case, we go through the process of finding out who those people were near, where they were, contacting the people around them, and going through the quarantine process. So that will not change. Bathroom procedures. That just means maximum of 2 people in a bathroom at any time. And we literally have staff on duty in the halls making sure that happens. Our morning entry process. We have the daily health screener that all students and staff fill out before coming in. That will continue. The temporal scans, taking the temperatures on the way in, that will continue. The separate entrances for different groups to spread the kids out, that continues. Restricted access to the building. For example, if you're a high school student that doesn't have a first period class, then you don't come in first period. We don't come in and hang out anymore. No unscheduled after school activities. The bell schedule is going to remain the same. So right now we have our modified bell schedule this year with an added period for teacher planning. And again, the reason for that is like everything takes longer. Assigning things takes longer. Correcting assignments takes longer. Setting up for classrooms takes longer. The communication, the electronic communication has risen. We're all getting more emails. That takes longer. So that's necessary for now. Our optional remote plan will continue. So if you choose to keep your child home for the remainder of the school year, you will still have that option. Staggered middle school dismissal. We have 4-minute intervals for grades 6, 7, and 8. That will continue. Open campus lunch for 11th and 12th graders. We encourage our students to go out and have lunch outside. They can go home. Full remote emergency plan. All that means is if we had a spike, if you remember in October, for example, we had some temporary closures. I want to say closures where we went full remote. We can still do that. So if we see our numbers go back up, or if there's a spike, if we had to, we would close and just transition to full synchronous for a short period of time. Teaching and learning, everybody keeps their district issued Chromebook, and we're going to make maximum use of outdoor space. Obviously with snow on the ground, that's something we really couldn't do. But now in the spring, where the weather's getting warmer, we're going to do the same thing we did in the fall. The only trade-off with the outdoor space, which we want to make maximum use of, the only trade-off is, sometimes things like audio, if you're learning from home, isn't as good. In different parts of the building, the Wi-Fi extends maybe just outside the window, or it may extend a little further. So depending on where the teacher's classroom is, that may dictate how far away from the classroom window, and things like audio quality and the type of instruction they can do, that may vary. Activities, athletics, and extracurriculars. Dr. Wilson, if you want to.
Sure. So to eliminate contact points, students will still not be permitted to utilize student or athletic lockers. This will also help to reduce congestion in the hallways. Seniors will continue to utilize the temporary parking lot located when you first come in Hornage Road. There are approximately 25 spots reserved for students, which is very close to the number that we had prior to construction. That parking will remain on a first come, first served basis.
All right, so this is the easy part. This is what has not changed nor will change on April 6th or April 12th. So what is changing? So first of all, in the health and safety category, the big deal, and again, I go back to the survey. This is why we absolutely need those survey numbers. The big change is the distancing. So we have, like I said, as most schools did in our area, we started off with the 6 feet, which mandated a hybrid model, because we certainly could not fit more than half of our students in at 6 foot distance. The minimum now is going to be 3 feet. So I want to be very clear on this. We're going to aim for 6 feet if we can. So 3 feet is just a minimum. There are some classes where we're going to need every single desk at 3 feet, and we're going to have a couple of kids left over. But we're not going below 3 feet. However, if there's less density, we will certainly spread the kids out as much as possible. So we're going to aim for 6 feet, but 3 feet minimum. One of the tickets to achieve the 3 feet or to go below 6 feet is a physical barrier. A lot of people, are saying plexiglass. Plexiglass is not fire safe for school. So the term is polycarbonate. It's basically just plastic. So imagine a 3-sided shield sitting on a desk. Okay. The reason we're getting those is without those, we wouldn't be able to bring the kids back in. I would not have done this in the first half of the year. If you remember, in midwinter, we had neighboring towns had color zones. We had yellow, orange, red zones, and community numbers were spiking. That was certainly not appropriate then. Our community numbers have improved. Across Westchester, the numbers have improved. So we are now in a position where it's safe to do this. surveillance testing. Surveillance testing is another thing that will help us keep an eye on safety thresholds. So all surveillance testing is rapid tests provided here at school. We use the Abbott BIMAX Now test. We have about 1,500 of them. We can get more. They're provided by Westchester County because we are a licensed facility to provide the tests. And we started this as a pilot this week. So we started with our staff. We had 48 staff members volunteer to come in and get tested. And we went 48-0. We had no positive tests. They're fairly quick. It's not the all the way up brain swab that was common early on. This is a very shallow cotton swab in the nose. We can probably do about one person per minute. So this coming Monday, we're going to expand it to remaining staff that wants to get tested. And we're inviting some high school students. We're starting off with our high school student senate and class officers. And then we're going to continue every Monday with different groups. So you'll hear more information about that. And again, the reason we do it on a Monday morning is that if someone does get a positive test, in which case we tell you you need to follow up with a PCR. But if you do get a positive test, you haven't been in school since the previous week, you don't affect anyone in here, so we don't have to quarantine anyone. And that'll help us keep our numbers as low as they have been in here, because so far we've been a very safe environment here in our school buildings, and we want to keep it that way.
In the high school, because of the different letter day schedule that we had been using, clubs were running on a letter day. So this was intended to give each cohort the opportunity to meet in person. So what we will be doing is returning to a Monday through Friday schedule for the clubs that are currently being offered in the high school. Additionally, with the return of both cohorts, mixing of cohorts in non-athletic extracurricular activities will take place. If you recall, athletics has already been cross-cohort.
Dr. Wilson, can you address staff vaccinations? Because I skipped that bullet.
Oh, sorry, I skipped that. We did have some inquiries about staff vaccinations and where we would be at the time of reopening. We do fully anticipate that we will be close to 100% at the time of our reopening. 100% of all staff who want to get tested, we're going to be very vaccinated, will have the ability to get vaccinated and will be complete with their vaccinations by that time. As of this past Wednesday, it was 64% of our staff were fully vaccinated. Of the remaining staff, 50% of them had received their first dose and 20% were scheduled for their first dose. All right, we'll shift back to the activities and athletics. My apologies. So I will just speak about the athletic option. We did get some inquiries about athletic option for 11th and 12th grade spring varsity athletes. So beginning April 19th, we do believe that we will be able to accommodate that. If you want to go back to intramurals, Dr. Latinsky.
Sure. Middle school intramurals, which have been single cohort to keep the students separated as much as possible. They can now be mixed. So Mr. Seglia has worked out, the things we've had to do with athletics because of this are phenomenal, and our athletic department's done a great job. So we hope that continues.
Okay, so when the middle school students return on April 6th, we will be resuming the typical rotation of letter days on the letter day calendar. So we'll begin with an A day, and then we'll proceed to a B day, a C day. However, since the high school is not returning until April 12th, from April 6th through April 9th, from Tuesday through Friday of that week, cohort days will remain on the calendar for high school students only. Additionally, we are not offering a hybrid option for school schedules. You either are in person or you are fully remote for the remainder of the school year.
So one of the things that we're going to have to change, since we're bringing all of our students back in, are things like lunch periods. So the middle school eats in the the dining hall. The high school has been eating in the library. So I can fit one cohort in the dining hall at any time with some extra seating. What I cannot do is fit all of my students in a particular grade in the dining hall at one time. So for the sixth grade lunch, which is period 5, I cannot fit all my sixth graders in the dining hall period 5 because we're maintaining 6 feet apart while we eat. So here's the exception to the 3-foot rule. We're not changing the dining halls or the eating areas. So if you're eating, you're minimum 6 feet apart. So our dining hall will hold, one cohort plus some, but not the whole group. So what we're going to do is we're going to split shift the middle school students. So instead of eating and then going outside, we're going to split it. One group will eat first and then go out to recess. The other group will recess first and then come in halfway. So we'll come up with a signal to switch the kids to give them the maximum amount of time to eat. The inclement weather plan. So we have an inclement weather plan for our gymnasium. So as you're aware, the current gymnasium building is separated by a decent distance from our school. So on those days where, and I'm not talking about light rain, but really heavy weather where they would be soaked by the time they get to gym, we already have what we call a rainy day PE and health schedule, where it's so bad we can't send them out there. So the PE and health teachers come into this building and they instruct the students in different places in our building here. We would just do the same thing. So on those rare days where we can't send the kids outside, we would put them in other places in the building to wait and then switch so that they can eat.
And what that will do is create some room in a section of the dining hall for high school students in 9th and 10th grade who wish to have lunch. We will need to repurpose the library to provide us with 3 larger learning spaces. Additionally, we are removing study hall for this year only for juniors, and that kind of is related to the athletic option that will allow us to give the option for the 11th and 12th grade varsity athletes to not attend PE, because typically we would put them in a study hall. And additionally, that will just reduce congestion in the hallways, because as the weather gets nicer, the juniors can now leave campus on their free periods as well as their lunch for this year only. Room assignments may change, and what we have done is with our custodial staff, we've gone through each of the classrooms to get an estimate of how many student desks will fit in there with 3 feet of spacing. Depending on the size of the section and the number of seats available, you may find that your child's room is going to change. In some cases, what we do not know yet, and this is going to be dependent upon your responses in the survey, if we have a significant number of students in a particular class who chose in person and there is not a space to accommodate that number. So for example, if we have a class and all 26 kids in this particular section decide they're coming in and we do not have a space in that period to hold 26 kids, we may look to rotate out kids to an alternate location so that they can join remotely from a supervised location and join class remotely from inside the building. We will try to minimize the amount of times that happens, but it is a possibility. In some cases, we will also look to see if a schedule change might help to reduce the number. So it might be an English and history, for example, period flop, so long as it doesn't change the numbers in the other section.
All right. So as Dr. Wilson said, so this is the splitting lunch, recess. We can do that. This is the complicated part, and this is why that survey is so critical. So as parents, before you answer the survey, you might want to know what you're agreeing to, and that's why we're doing this. But in turn, we need that information from you to tell you what we're going to do. So as Dr. Wilson said, just to give you a simple example, we've been talking about space all year. The 6 feet apart, not a chance. That's why we had to have the hybrid. But even 3 feet, 3 feet, we cannot fit all of our kids in all of our classes at 3 feet. So whoever chooses to stay home, that will reduce the number in each class. So if, for example, I have a classroom that can fit 19 students at 3 feet, but there are 20 students in the group in person. So in other words, I have one more kid than I can fit in the room. When Dr. Wilson says rotation, that means one student might come to my conference room and participate in the class remotely just for that period, and then rejoin the group later. And then every single day we would rotate someone else. So it wouldn't be, one particular child would always be separated. One child out of 20, means that, one every 20 days. Again, we're only talking April, May, and June. So it wouldn't be too much, but that's one of the things that we're thinking about. But it all depends on literally how many children we have each period. So what hasn't been decided yet? These are things that we're considering. So when I say staggered middle school entry, I'm not talking about anything exotic or that should really impact drop-offs. The reason for a staggered middle school entry, obviously, this year, one of the few benefits of COVID has been the traffic jams that we normally have on campus, beginning of the day and the end of the day. Obviously, that's been lighter. So in the morning, I may stagger the middle school entry, maybe just by that 4 minutes. Again, it's not going to change your drop-off time too much, but remember, we have to health screen all of our students coming in. So right now I have a 6th grade team, a 7th grade team, an 8th grade team at 3 different entrances that bring in one cohort at the same time every morning. Now I'm doubling that number of students. So, what I might do is, stagger them by 4 minutes to allow me to beef up those teams so they can move around a little bit. But again, that's not going to substantially impact what time you drop your children off at all.
So the high school students do not typically have recess, and with the 11th and 12th graders generally taking advantage of the opportunity to leave campus for lunch, that leaves 9th and 10th graders mainly utilizing the dining hall. So we will monitor the numbers based on what you select in the survey, and we will see if I need to split high school lunch periods as well, just to kind of control the flow in the food service area. We have already met with the food service director, and we've already outlined a slight change. We're keeping 2 service areas, but the flow of traffic in the food service area will be slightly changed to have like a hot food service area on one side and a deli and salad section on the other side. But this will hopefully help to kind of assist with the flow of students through the area, as opposed to having 2 separate serving areas for middle school and high school. Additionally, we have yet to determine how we will be distributing and picking up barriers. We did order 1 for every child in the middle school, high school, and we are expecting an update on the delivery date once they're manufactured, but they are ordered. So, we will work those details out. We're going to ask for teacher input on that, since they are the ones who are closest to the use of the barriers and what
And these are those 3-sided desk shields. Some schools are making them the responsibility of the student, so that you have to bring it home with you and then bring it in the next day. And that's something we certainly considered. Our fear there is, what if children don't bring their shield in? How many extra shields are we supposed to have? What if they break in transit? We have kids that ride bikes. We have students that walk to school. We would rather not do that, but that means they're going to be in here, and we need to come up with a system of making sure that they can be stored, cleaned, and that we're working on. Thresholds for change in the mode of instruction. All that means is, like I mentioned, we can certainly, since we obviously know how to do hybrid instruction and remote instruction, if the situation were to reverse itself, so instead of the improving numbers that we see, if things start to go the other way, we're in constant contact with the Department of Health. Dr. Ferraro and the other superintendents communicate regularly. So if things change, we could revert to a full remote if we had to, whether for a short period or a longer period of time. Right now, it doesn't look that way. So obviously, we're optimistically looking forward to our students coming back, but we certainly can do that. And the last one on here, I'll let Dr. Wilson talk about Regents, but these are the state tests. So really quick on that, we are obligated as a New York State public school to give certain tests. Our high school students need certain exams to graduate. Our fellows and middle school students in grades 3 through 8 have to take ELA and math exams. We also have science for grades 4 and 8. So these are state tests. New York State, like a bunch of other states, basically asked the federal government to let us off the hook. The federal government said, no, you still have to test. They said, we may allow you to change schedules, maybe to reduce the time, maybe to reduce some of the requirements, but you still have to do the tests. So what New York State is doing is they're going to figure out exactly what that means for us. So right now, the New York State ELA and math assessments that our Bellows and middle school students take every year, those are still on. Still 2 days, ELA in April and math in May. Obviously, if that changes, we'll let you know. The Regents has been a little bit different. I'll let Dr. Wilson talk about that.
So with the U.S. Department of Ed denying the blanket waiver, New York State has submitted a proposal for 4 regions to run. A decision has not been made, but those regions are living environment, earth science, algebra, and ELA. So once we find out the outcome, we will communicate that. In terms of the College Board Advanced Placement exams, they came out with 3 testing administrations. We have gotten input from teachers as well as AP students. And this Friday, we hope to release our school's proposed schedule for AP testing. We are really encouraging students to take advantage of the in-person testing when possible. Families who select the remote option on the survey, you will be getting separate notification about your options, and you will be asked to make a decision about whether you will be taking the exams in person or digitally at home. There are some challenges that go along with the digital testing, and you can read about that more in the letter. That letter should be going out by Monday. Depending on what decision is made, though, and depending on the space requirements, during some of these testing periods, especially advanced placement or Regents, we might need to go and shift to remote to create the spaces on some of these testing days. So that's something that's not yet been decided. It's dependent very much on the numbers and how many people will be in school. There's been no discussion of Regents exams being offered digitally thus far. So those would all be in person.
All right, so important reminders. So we have a frequently asked questions that's posted on our website under middle school and high school.
It will be posted, sorry. It's not yet been posted. It will be posted as soon as this is over.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. I should have read that correctly. Two questions that I don't think we or one actually that I don't think we addressed. Question came in about how will positive cases be handled, and why can't exposed kids who come in through contact tracing just get a negative test and get out of quarantine? That's not up to us. So you cannot test out of a quarantine. One of the reasons for that is if you are exposed, remember they reduced the quarantine, which a lot of people were looking forward to, because quarantine is horrible. They were looking forward to a reduction of 14 days to 10 days. Well, they did that, but if you get exposed, you're really not supposed to get tested until 5 days, halfway through the quarantine period. And then the test results aren't always instantaneous. And what the Department of Health knows is that you can still develop COVID toward the end of your quarantine period. So again, that's not up to us. Quarantine does not, a positive test that you're exposed to, positive person, you get quarantined, you're quarantined for 10 days. There's no way to test out of that. Another question about barriers, about storage of barriers. Again, we're not having children carry barriers back and forth. Again, it's March 11th. We have to be fluid and do things that make sense. It is not our plan. Maybe that'll change in the future. But as I said, I would prefer not to have our kids carrying the barriers back and forth. So they're going to stay here. So in other words, the child would come into school, pick up their barrier, have their school day, and then leave it here. I think that's the easiest and safest thing to do. So regarding our survey, as it says, if you have not already done so, please respond to the survey by 11 p.m. tonight. Whoever doesn't respond to the survey, we're going to have to contact you. The more people we have to contact, the longer it's going to take for us to get our data together. And again, I want to reiterate why this is important. Things like staggered entry, not a problem. Mixing cohorts, not a problem. We need the data to go to a classroom by classroom, teacher by teacher, period by period assessment of how many students are going to be in each classroom, each period. That's critical to moving forward with the plan. So please answer that survey. Question about entry. Is there a way parents can volunteer to help the school with the entrance process? Maybe. When we started in the spring, one of the things that we needed to do was see here at the middle school, high school, we have if you haven't gotten out of your car or come in here, we literally have little spots spray painted 7 feet apart on our sidewalks, so that at our entry points, kids can line up and there be socially distanced. They're pretty good at that right now. Obviously, if our numbers are going to almost double, then we're going to have to make some changes in the lines. Like I said, I may have to stagger my entrance. So the way our kids are handling this, and they've been absolute champions through this, I don't think I would need help, but I wouldn't hesitate to ask. So hold that thought. Thank you. Dr. Wilson, anything else? Dr. Wilson, I think you're on mute.
I think it's all, we also got a question about whether parents could be tested.
Oh, right now, no. So the purpose of our testing, again, these are all asymptomatic tests. So if you're feeling symptoms, if you think of it this way, if you have symptoms, whether you're a student or a staff member, you can't get in the building, because you should get the red screen on your health screener, and or you would have a temperature. So you wouldn't even be able to get in here to be tested. So our testing process is not for sick people to see if they have COVID. All of the tests we will give are to asymptomatic people, and they're for the sole purpose of determining our positivity rate here in the school. So far, the good news is that, like I said, quarantines are a pain in the neck for everybody. They hinder us here in terms of staffing. That's why we had to close earlier in the year. They interrupt student education. They interrupt family life. For our, Daniel Warren and Bellows students, it can be very difficult to deal with. However, that's not happening in here. Once we quarantine, we're not getting sick. So the good news is that the spread is not happening here in school. So we have to quarantine, but the people we quarantine are usually not coming back getting sick. The letters that we send home, which we want to keep you informed about positive cases, they're usually outside sources. Obviously, in our homes, it's difficult to keep ourselves separated. So we don't report siblings, but a lot of these letters are siblings because it's hard to keep separate in a house. Here in school, we have very little indication that anybody who was sick in here gave it to anybody else in here. And we want to keep it that way. So the surveillance testing, like I said, the faculty we did was 48 tested, 48 negatives. So we're going to do that with our students. We'll update you on which group we're doing. Like I said, we're going to start with our high school students next week. It's a fairly easy process, but it's just for students and staff.
We have a question about how students who bike every day will transport the barriers. Again, we'd like to reiterate that this was something that was discussed, but a final decision has not been made because we have thought of that as well. So we will communicate what the distribution and collection model will be once a decision has been made. Let's see. All right, we have a theme of regarding increased student stress and anxiety and what we will be doing to address that. Dr. Feit continues to work with the Mental Health K-12 Committee, which does have parents on it. She also is responding to some of the student senate, with the high school student senate has communicated that some of the students feel stressed out. So she is planning targeted sessions on stress management, time management, and all of the factors that the students have indicated that they're struggling with. So she will communicate that plan shortly. Will seniors who...
I would just add to that. I think some of the inquiries we get from parents about student mental health have to do with social isolation. So bringing the cohorts together and reuniting the single friend who is in cohort 1 from the rest of the friend group who might be in cohort 2, for example, which is something we've heard often. That should be important for our kids.
We have a question about whether seniors who continue with remote learning will be allowed to participate in upcoming senior activities. So they would not be excluded from the prom or graduation or things of that nature. But depending on what the requirements are for prom, they may need to be tested. We're still waiting for New York State education guidance, but we do have the guidance for the venues. So our intention is not to exclude remote learners who are seniors from participating in senior activities. If the venue guidance holds true, we do have a question about prom and graduation for seniors. Unfortunately, if there is an exposure, there's nothing that we can do. They would have to be quarantined and not able to attend prom or graduation. We can't do anything about that. If the venue guidance holds true, we may be testing participants. If it's a rapid test, it's required 6 hours before the event. So if that test were to come back indeed positive, the child unfortunately would be excluded. Athletic option has always only been offered to upperclassmen, 11th and 12th graders.
Mrs. Ryan, are you,
Sorry.
okay?
It's the question about athletic option or about athletics being offered to 9th and 10th graders.
The option is only the athletic option, meaning they do not need to attend phys ed when they're in season, has always only been offered to 11th and 12th grade students. That does not mean that 9th and 10th graders are excluded from participating in varsity athletics. They just have to go through the whole process of, going to the tryouts. I believe they're still not cutting people. So they just have to follow up, go to their practices, and fulfill their obligations on that end.
Okay, so Dr. Wilson and I and company will be doing this again at 6 p.m. this evening. It's the exact same presentation, but if you come up with a question between now and then, you can certainly use the email, and we'll try to address it tonight. So at this point, I want to say thank you. This is a big deal. This is, we've been kind of talking about this all year. At what point will we be able to get all of our students back in? Like I said, the students have been champs. They've been doing everything we've asked, and I am absolutely impressed. So they should get a big thank you. I want to thank all of our parents for being so helpful and so cooperative to make this work. And our teaching staff. They've made countless adjustments throughout the year. And now we're going to be asking them to make some more. So all of our staff in the building who's going to be unloading pods and putting furniture back in and sharing information and dealing with students who are in various locations during class. This is a heavy lift, and I'm very pleased with the way collectively our community has handled this, and I want to say thank you. So again, anything between now and tonight, please use the email. 6 p.m. tonight, we'll be doing the same thing. Thank you. Have a great day.